I'll call to meeting the Old Saybrook Zoning Commission, regularly scheduled Monday, July 17th, 7 p.m. open floor, Town Hall, first floor conference room. This evening, roll call, we have myself, Mark Caldarella, Vice Chair, Jerry Lewis, Secretary, regular commission members, Mark Delmonico, and Anne Marie Thorsten. And seated tonight for Bob Friedman is John Henry. Moving on to regular business, minutes from the last meeting. Were there any comments, corrections from any of the commission members? I did not see any.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 21st zoning meeting.
Second.
And Mark Delmonico, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Thank you very much. I was remiss during the roll call to identify our CEO officer, Chris Costa, and our esteemed Joanne Galley. And I'm sorry, also our alternate Brenda Dyson. So.
And 5 people in the audience.
5 people in the audience and
One online.
one online. Thank you. Is there any correspondence other than what's on the agenda for this evening?
None.
Moving into all business, old business. Item 4A, fine federal cannabis application for special exception use approval. 2,600 square foot retail recreational marijuana dispensary, 1,400 square foot vacant space, and 1,000 square foot storage above 233 Boston Post Road, Assessors Map 44, Lot 11, Business B4 District. Applicant is Fine Federal Cannabis. Agent Attorney Amy Suchin. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, last time I didn't. Action to review parking management plan at least 65 days prior to the scheduled opening date of the business for consistency with the conditions of the special exception approval.
Good evening, everyone. What I just handed out at the beginning, we realized in the first paragraph there was a conflict between the word and the parenthetical with respect to appointments and the minute period. So what I just handed out, the only change is the sentence reads, there will be 5 appointments per 10-minute period. Like I said, there was a small error. But so Amy Suchins for the record, Ben Zax is on the call. If you have any questions, but as noted on the agenda, we are here in accordance with condition 3 of the approval, which requires us to submit a parking management plan for your determination of consistency with the terms of the approval. What we have outlined in the parking management plan, and Ben's happy to go through any details or questions you might have, is confirming, as noted in other parts of the approval, specifically condition 2, that sales are all pre-sale pickup by appointment. There's a limitation on no more than 5 appointments per 10-minute period. That's the sentence I just clarified. And also that we would provide, as noted in condition 3, any of the parking management or other conditions. What you see in here is the incorporation of, as we discussed during hearing, Laz Parking as the on-site parking management operator, locations for staff parking, how we would handle employee operations, and follow-up reporting that we had made the offer and will make again to provide operational information to staff about how the parking's going a week after we open and 2 weeks after we open. Since we were here last, obviously, the recreational cannabis sales have happened throughout Connecticut. If you have questions about, Ben can confirm that there have been no parking issues with any of the Fine Federal locations, and they get all the operations are going smoothly. But if you have any questions about the parking management plan, but otherwise, we would just like to note that you make a determination as a matter of consistency in accordance with condition 3.
Any of the commissioners have any questions, comments on the parking management plan?
Just refresh my memory, how many parking places did you have?
27.
27.
That included employee and
That's
customer.
right. That,
I have one question. I think it's the same in the latest version you gave us, under employee operations.
yes,
It states, the first paragraph, in addition to our appointment only system, Fine Fellows will be employing the use of outside greeters. Can you define what outside greeters means?
Sure. So we have somebody who checks someone's ID outside of the building to confirm that they're 21 years of age or older, and that they are the person who placed an order for an appointment, to confirm that that is true in accordance with our structure and setup of appointment only. So that helps to sort of mitigate problems of someone coming in the building, showing their ID, it not being them and not having ID, or not having an appointment. It speeds up the process so that if there were somebody coming in who wasn't supposed to be there, we could tell them quicker to speed up any usage of the parking place. It's a strategy that we've used across the locations in general, even the ones, because none of our other facilities right now are using appointment only like they did when we opened. And we've just made a smoother, quicker process throughout by checking IDs outside versus in the building. And we think it's a nicer process, honestly, for the customer experience.
Where would the greeter do that?
They stand like right in front of the front door, like a front door entrance. Yeah.
Okay,
So in that building, we've sort of got that like landing pad up below the awning in there.
Are those greeters part of the 8 employees?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
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 In the next paragraph, outsourced parking management, there's a reference on the second line, parking management company to manage day of parking lot traffic for the initial opening period of the facility. Can you define what the initial opening period of the facility is considered?
So generally we've had, so it's been different in different locations, but in 2 of our facilities, we had them the first weekend, which we generally try and open on a Friday. So we had them Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In another facility, we had them all the first week. And then we're working with local law enforcement in each of the locations, we've removed the parking management. And so if we wanted to define that term, I'm more than happy to do so, but it's generally been based on sort of the reality of demand. So I probably saw it as the first weekend, but if we want that process or timeline to be longer, we're happy to have that discussion. That wasn't specifically laid out in the conditions of approval, so we didn't put a specific date period on that because it's been different in different places. You know, like in Willimantic, for example, we were a lot less busy. They were there the first weekend. In Manchester, which has been busier, but we have more parking, they were there the first day. In Stamford, they were there for weekends for about 2 months, but not during the week. And in Newington, they were just there for the first week of operation and then nothing at all after. And that's been our busiest location. So again, an answer without a specific, but it's been sort of as we've seen the realities of the demand and traffic and process.
And that would be LAS that you're referring to for that?
Yeah, we've had LAS at every facility and have had a great relationship. It's worked nicely. It's worked with local law enforcement as well. And just to note, because I know this was a question from the chief, LAS does not go on to public roadways. All of their management of the parking is within our parking lot to ensure that it's quick in and out and things of that nature. Nothing is done on the public roads via the private business.
Correct. I would think that it would be of best interest for Fine Fellows as well as the town of Saybrook is that we had a defined period to start with, so we knew what was going to happen in anticipation of that changing. So I would recommend that we set a time frame to that process. Commissioners,
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable and agreed.
But where are they gonna park? Laz parking people.
They
Where-
they get driven onto site. They don't use parking spots.
Okay,
Yeah. No, we don't want to exacerbate the problem with the additional parking folks. That's for sure. In Stamford, we have about 21 spots directly towards us. We've been able to do about 70 to 80 transactions per hour there. We've actually had construction on the road for the last month there on just like the neighboring area, and we haven't had an issue. So I'm confident in the plan and that it'll work, but I want to make sure the proof is in the pudding and that, you know, you guys don't see it candidly. I don't want you to see it. I don't want anyone to experience. That's really the goal.
I would suggest that in commissioners, please speak up regarding it, but a 2 to 4 week timeframe to me would seem reasonable for this location. What's the consensus?
That's more than I would.
So
that was-
4 weeks,
4 weeks is
4 weeks,
is a good.
could we do a 4 week period?
Yeah, do you, based on Mr. Zach's comment that we would typically open on a Friday?
Yes.
Do you want just so we're all clear, 4 weekends? Sort of 4 weeks, including
Well,
4
That's
weekends?
a good question. Would it also be done during a week? Is it only being done, Vlad's only gonna be there on the weekend?
So based
Okay.
on our base demand pattern, we have not needed it during the week anywhere.
Okay.
So hey, we want to work. I want to work with you. I'm spitballing here, right? Just to be honest.
So we're
Right,
saying
like, yeah.
Saturday, Sunday,
We've
and-
generally done it. So we're definitely busiest on Fridays and Saturdays, just to be clear. That's been consistent across all of our operations. Sundays are actually less busy. I don't know if it's the history of just blue laws in New England, but Sundays have generally been less busy. So, you know, we're happy to do it what you want. Maybe a suggestion is we do it the first week and then the full week and then the first 4 weekends, and we can always add it based on the response of that first week. Because I think part of our conditions is we send an update after 1 week of operating. Honestly, we'll send one after 1 day. That's just how we've done it everywhere. But my suggestion would be maybe we do the first full week and then each of the first 4 weekends, and we can always change and add. Just because knowing the patterns of what we've seen in our business, we can literally do double the sales on weekends, but here, right, we're limited anyway. So it's going to be what the numbers are and are allowed.
I would, the first full week is acceptable, and then the next following 3 weekends is what I would recommend and agree with you.
Yeah, right. I know there's a voting process and I don't know the specifics of this, right? It's in accordance with the rules, but if that's okay, we're more than happy to adjust this on the fly and, you know, and we'll obviously operate in accordance with the law and with the accordance of the conditions.
I mean, right now, the plan is to have 5 appointments per 10-minute period. Evidently, you're doing more than that other places.
Correct.
How long is this going to stay into effect before that's changed?
We
From
need
that
to come
perspective.
back to you to change.
We would
that.
need to come back to you and apply.
All right, so we're in agreement that the first full week of operation, it will be daily maintained by Laz, and then following 3 weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, unless we receive further detail from you stating differently.
Yeah, that works for me. And, you know, maybe because this parking, our other parking plans in towns, we didn't come back to the commission. Here we are. And, you know, if acceptable, maybe after that first, call it like the first 10 days, which would represent, my guess, 2 weekends if we open on a Friday, which we will do. And the first full week, is it possible to send a report to zoning board staff and to deem if necessary to continue or not? Just because I don't know how it's going to work with meetings, but the plan would be for the first 4 weekends. Let me know if something like that works. I don't know what's best.
Does that work with you?
That works, and I can speak with the police chief too. So really what we're looking at is the 10 days would start a Friday, go through one Friday, end that following Sunday, which is 2 really full weekends. And then the next 2 weekends, which would be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, would be determined at that point. And then
That would make the four.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And I think frankly, very practically, given your meeting schedule, you will likely wind up with a meeting
In between.
somewhere in that window. So if there was something that Chris
Right.
needed to bring to you,
Okay.
you'd likely have everything in there.
Okay.
Yeah, and look, we don't know when exactly we're gonna open. There's construction schedule. We've submitted for building permits. We're waiting, I think that was 2 weeks ago, so we're just waiting on comments from the building department. And then, construction is construction, let's call it that. And so, and then we have inspections, and so I'll be sure to keep all of the updates regarding where we are in those processes. So you guys are well aware of the timelines as we get closer, and so that it doesn't turn from it doesn't stay as a moving target, but becomes a actual target.
Okay. In that same paragraph, starting about 4 lines down, it says Laz will employ a contractor to ensure proper parking locations plus exit for safety of both cars, customers, and employee.
Mhm.
My understanding of Laz is it is a contractor. Is Laz hiring a different contractor to handle the parking?
No, sorry, that if the language is unclear, they are the contracted outsourced party. They have internal employees. I'm sorry, I'm actually traveling, and so my phone's going nuts right now. Apologize for that. But Laz, yeah, no, they are the contractor, and then their employees, I don't know if they're full-time Laz or if they're 1099s, but yeah. And then
Right.
just for the entrance and exit, what they ensure is that they go to the right spot, but also because we have one means of egress, there's not a separate entrance and exit on that site. That just, cars are going in the right lane and out the right lane, just to ease any concerns.
Okay, and in that same paragraph, it says plus exit for safety of both cars. That would mean, does that mean Laz would direct cars to the exit on your property?
To the exit on our property, they're not like, coning people onto the road by any means.
Okay. The last section on follow-up reporting. It states Fine Federal will proactively send a traffic and parking report after 1 week of operation and 2 weeks of operation for staff to evaluate the adjacency of the effect mitigation measures and any adjusted or proposed changes to the plan based on need. Is that a long enough time frame? 2 weeks? In essence, 2 reports, week to back.
Hey, for us, I'm going to tell my manager to write it up, honestly. And so whatever you want, I'll tell him or her to do. So if you want more updates, I'm happy to give them maybe after the 2 weeks, we do it after the month, so that would hit the 4 weeks. If we want to add specifics to the times, I'm more than happy to oblige. It's, no big deal for us.
The commissioner is okay with the way it's written?
Is it so it's every 2 weeks or it's every
The
4
first
weeks?
week and the
So the
second.
initial plan was we do it after 1 week, which would hit the first week. We do it after 2 weeks, which would then give a report on that second weekend, as well as the first, weekdays without the traffic, without the parking there. And so that was well, we didn't have the specifics of time, but it sort of worked out that way based on this discussion. And if you want us to send one at the end of the 4 week, call it the weekend coverage period, I'm happy to do that as well.
So,
That's good.
so if you opened on a Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday, which is not really your peak, you would probably report maybe.
Yeah, so I guess if we opened on let's just I guess to use numbers, right? If we open on Friday the 1st, then we'd send one on Friday the 8th, we'd send one on Friday the 15th, and maybe we send one at the end of that 4 weeks, which would be, what is that, Thursday the 28th, which would essentially be the end of the time where we have to have Laz there. So you could see sort of the change over a month.
So I guess what I'm saying is, per our discussion, if you opened on a Friday, which is typical, you'd have 10 days.
Correct, so what we're talking about, and I think as we're talking about this, it may make sense to make this match what we were just talking about with.
Yeah.
So a report after the first full week, so you get you'll get a report with the initial basically 10-day period, so the initial Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the entire week, then the following weekend.
Right.
Unless you want it sooner, then we can submit reports with each of the following 3 weekends. So by the end of the month, you will have gotten 4 reports, 1 covering the first 10 days, and then 1 covering the additional, I guess it's technically 2 weekends.
Right.
The other data point that I'm gonna try and be able to pull, which is sometimes easier said than done, is the amount of people who try to come without an order, right? Because one thing that we did run into in Martha's Vineyard actually was that our most problematic customers were the ones who wanted to order but couldn't, which can impact traffic numbers, right? Because we can't stop them from coming into the parking lot. And so just trying to understand so you guys can get the vantage point of how operations are ultimately running and sort of what the customer understanding is, right? Because we can't stop somebody from driving up trying. We can stop them from coming in, but we can't stop them from trying. And so we'll try and assess that to see how did the actual transaction numbers impact the actual car numbers so you guys can get as much information as possible.
One final question, comment had to do with law enforcement. You're planning to meet and discuss opening day plans and traffic in
Yeah.
advance.
Generally when our security infrastructure is in place, we always try and do a walkthrough with local police to understand the full extent of our camera system, our access controls, as well as what we expect to have for a day 1 coverage. And so once we know that timeline, and once we sort of have the site work in place where it looks real, right? Because we have quite a bit of site work to do on the facility. I would reach out to the department with the hope of, response to look at the plan, to understand best practices, to say how we're doing it, see what they want. I could try starting to do that now, but it's more impactful when it's real and the infrastructure is there that they can see. So that's generally something that we have to do.
Is that typically done a week before or days before?
It's
Your past experience.
both. It depends on the town. It depends on sort of how ready the facility's been. It depends on how quickly DCP, Department of Consumer Protection, will come out and do their inspection to allow us to open. But if you want me to do it at a certain period, I'm more than happy to try and reach out, per your request. I mean, I could do it tomorrow if you wanted.
No, that's not the point. The concern would be that they're giving enough notice so that they have the time to plan it and be there to review it with you.
Sure. Yeah, no, we generally will reach out like 2-ish weeks in advance when we start looking for COs. That's roughly, but that's not like a set in stone number. But we definitely want to, we have to and want to go through it beforehand.
Okay.
Do they have security cameras on the parking lot?
Yes, we do. We have external security cameras that cover the parking lot.
You can see
Absolutely.
the parking lot live.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, we generally don't give a direct tie-in, so the department is looking at it live, but they have access to our cameras and we hold a 90-day backup so they can look back and see. We could give them a login to our security system. I'm fine with that too, but most towns haven't asked for that. And honestly don't want the requirement to do it at the end of the day.
Any other questions from commissioners? Concerns?
No.
So at this point, we need to make a motion to accept with.
To approve.
To
the
approve
parking.
parking with the conditions as noted, correct? So I will make a motion to accept the parking management plan as presented, which was handed to us this evening, dated July 17, 2023, with the 2 conditions that were added regarding the parking. I'm sorry, not the parking,
So I have it written, so the opening day will be on a Friday.
right.
Parking will begin being monitored or operated by LAZ Parking for 10 days, which would include 2 weekends. And then following that, the following 2 weekends, which would be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, reports would be provided to the zoning enforcement officer after the first full 10 days, and then following the 2 weekends. And the commission encourages Fine Federal to reach out to the Department of Police Services and give them sufficient time for their inspections and not a last minute inspection.
Definitely not.
Second,
Seconded by Jerry Lewis. Any discussion? Not hearing any. Those in favor, raise your hand and signal by aye.
I,
Opposed? Abstention? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
You too.
you too,
Thank you.
thank you.
Continued public hearings, section 5. A. For Ligliano, application for special exception use and coastal site plan review. Construct a 1,880 square foot 3-car garage and house addition. 147 square foot front porch and 136 square foot back porch to an existing residence for a total proposed 9,728 square feet at 38 Watchers Point Road, map 64, lot 17-8, resident AA-3 district, coastal area management zone, Connecticut River Gateway Conservation Zone. Applicant Agnes and Cosmo Corgliano, agent Joe Wren. Action, close public hearing and consider an act. Mr. Wren.
Good evening. Good evening. Hope everyone is well. Again, for the record, my name is Joe Wren, professional engineer of Indigo here in Old Saybrook. Over to my left are Cosmo and Terry Corigliano, the owners of the property. And toward the back is Brooke Purdy, who's the project architect. So I'll just quickly go through the site plan and the reason why we're here. Brooke will go through the house very quickly. And then we can entertain any questions. If you recall, we were in front of you previously. I don't remember the exact date. We had this house that's on the Connecticut River, and there was a coastal jurisdiction line based on available survey information that was a little closer to the river. And it was discovered that by locating it via survey there with some additional elevations, it actually swings in closer to the house. Putting part of the proposed development within 100 feet from that line. So we needed a variance to construct anything within 100 feet of that particular line that was located by survey. So I have a copy of the updated survey map that shows that. You can keep that for the record. That shows that surveyed line, which is on this plan and is highlighted in the green dash. The solid blue line is actually the edge of the river, and then there's a shoreline, and you can see how that those elevations stay low. And the coastal jurisdiction line comes way in there for the house. Since then, we did go to zoning board of appeals last week. We got a unanimous approval, variances for this. And their findings were that they went through the design criteria of the Gateway Commission. And they were in agreement with us that everything was done with the architecture of the house and the site planning that was consistent with the Gateway design criteria along the Connecticut River. These plans here that I'll pass around, the renderings that Brooke's office prepared, show the existing house from the river. And then there's a ghosted image here. You can see the improvement there. I'll pass these around and you keep those for the record as well. Brooke will get more into it, but what she did is you can see that those areas of the darker outline are further from the river. It's actually the furthest distance from the edge of the river. The actual existing house is quite a bit closer to the river. So it's off to the side. It's in an area where there is building. There is a 1-story garage there highlighted in orange. with a connection to the house. All of that is there. And then over the western portion of the main addition, which is highlighted in yellow, that's over existing paved driveway. So the development doesn't involve really any grading, doesn't involve taking down any trees or vegetation. And from those renderings that are being passed around now, along with some additional pictures I'll share in a moment, you can see that the house is nicely framed. It's an 8-acre property along the shoreline. It's all wooded except for the immediate area around the house. That's obviously developed for residential use. And it's very nicely framed and sets into the landscape. So these other photos, these 3 photos I'm going to pass around now, this is taken from the river, and you could, full on shot, no angle, straight on shot. You can see the house there, but you can see the tree canopy behind it, and that's all their property. They're not proposing to remove one tree or change any of the landscaping at all. As you go up or down the river, obviously the scene changes a little bit. This one is almost the same, maybe a little further upriver. And this view
It's beautiful where they are.
is even a little further upriver, and you can see the mature trees that are in front that start to hide the house from the river view as well. So I'll pass these around, and those. And these last 2 photos are just taken from the driveway side, and they show the garage here that will be demolished, and the connection to the house, and then the circular driveway from 2 different angles. So you can see those. I'll send these back so you can keep those for the record as well. The reason why we are in front of zoning is because the house exceeds 3,500 square feet. Per your regulations, the house within the gateway, Connecticut River Gateway Conservation Zone that exceeds 3,500 square feet has to come before you for a special exception. So we had to go to ZBA since we're building within that 100-foot zone. We got those variances. Now we're back to you to request a special exception. Brooke will go through the house with you and some of the GFAs. You'll see the numbers that we have to identify in the tables and on the applications is like 9,700 square feet, which is artificially inflated because the way that the definition in the zoning regulation requires us to compute gross floor area is all covered porches, even if they're open to the elements, there's with a roof on it. Count garages, we have a 3-car garage here, we have a full basement underneath the footprint of the house. All those areas, or at least portions of those areas, count towards the gross floor area. So Brooke has a good breakdown of those numbers, and she'll share those with you. So it's not a almost 10,000 square foot house. It's more like half of that, 5,000 or 6,000 total square feet. The in-ground pool in the patio in that development that is there. That has been there for several years. You can see that is the closest development to the coastal jurisdiction line. This is way back behind that and way back further than the existing houses. Brooke will also show you how she kind of added a porch to the side and kind of stepped it, lowered the ridge of the roof so that it's lower than the rest of the house. So it looks like it steps down and steps back better into the landscape as well. There was a coastal area management application that was also approved by ZBA. Here, we're not really adding any impervious for stormwater. We are modifying the driveway a little bit. Most of this house is, those additions that are built over either existing building areas or existing paved driveways. So we're not really adding a lot of impervious area. In the coverage and the zoning table, which is very detailed up in the upper left-hand corner. The only things we had to ask for variance, we meet all other zoning dimensional bulk requirements. We just had to ask for this amount of construction that was within 100 feet of that coastal jurisdiction line. Even though we have much development existing on the site that's much closer to the coastal jurisdiction line. So again, send those back to keep in the file. So again, we were successful with those variances. We received approval last week. And now we're back to you for the special exception. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brooke to go over the house really quickly. One further thing I wanted to mention about the zoning table is the coverage. It's an 8-acre property. We get 10% coverage. We're only somewhere around 4%, so we're far below the amount of coverage allowed for the property.
So the Correcamianos have lived at this property for about 25 years. And they've made some small incremental changes, one of which was the pool. And that was about 15 years ago. And now, with the way their family has changed and things, they wanted to add roofs. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the existing garage is a flat roof garage and it's quite rotten. It has lived its lifetime and more. So we wanted to replace the garage. And didn't think that the flat roof was such a good idea. So we wanted to do a pitched roof and do a story and a half on it. So this is the floor plan, and the way it's oriented is this is the garage side and this is the water side. So here you can see the outline of the pool. So the first thing we did was pull the addition back from the water side of the house because we knew there was gateway and people have concerns about the Connecticut River and keeping building as far away from the river as we can. So here's the pool house, and then behind it, we put the 3-car garage. So there's a faint outline here of where the existing garage is, but it's actually pretty much on the same footprint. It's not angled like the existing, and it's a little bit thinner, and it goes out onto the driveway side. But I didn't feel that you could get really that much farther from the pool and still have it function as a pool house. And then, so that's kind of how we organized the plan, was to make it really quite a bit thinner here. It's about, I think 18 feet thinner. And then in the elevations, this is the existing house from here over. So this is 20 feet back. So we lowered the eave line and put some dormers like you see in the driveway side of the house, and then match the roof pitch and all of the materials. And then what I like to do if I want something to seem smaller is if you put a porch in front of it, it shades it and it makes it recede even more. So this porch here should, kind of tuck it in with the trees and the shading.
Any questions?
What's the practical function of the pool house? Is it got mechanicals in it at all, or just like a changing room, or?
Has a bathroom, because otherwise it's just a powder room right now. We have to walk through the house. Changing room, kind of a little bit of a hangout space, because people just don't want the sun anymore. So you kind of go hang out, but still feel like you're at the pool. And then there's a sauna, which is, I find a lot of people are asking for health reasons now. They're great.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Since this is a continuation of public hearing, if there's anyone in attendance in the room speaking on behalf of or against or virtually online, please speak up now. No one in the room? And no hand raised online, correct? Okay. Chris, we received all correspondence
We received all the referral responses. I put it into the record, I think,
last.
the last meeting.
Right.
So
Right.
at this point, since May, we should have received all the responses, so I don't expect any additional information.
Correct.
Did you get a copy of the revised plan? Did they have that? This is changed, right?
Yeah, this is it right here.
No, I'm talking about referrals from Gateway and the building official, and so we've received all of those, not talking about revised plans.
There were, a couple concerns raised by Connecticut River Gateway Commission, with regards to, lighting and, keeping the existing trees, I believe. Joe is still here, right?
Yeah.
Hey.
That's okay.
You hide.
I couldn't see from there. Was there discussion of ZBA on any of this? No.
I had mentioned during my presentation that they do not plan on changing any of the trees or landscaping at all.
Right.
No tree removal, and not even trimming of any trees.
Right.
And lighting, what was requested is that they just don't add any lighting, or they don't add big lights shining out toward the river, and they have no plan for that. They're gonna keep the existing lighting they have, and
So if there
it
was,
might be like a soffit light under the new porch, but nothing glaring out.
so any lighting would be, dark sky compliant, full cutoff,
Yes,
is that correct?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and very minor, just, like sconces.
Okay, and as mentioned, all existing trees remain.
Correct.
Commissioners, any additional questions? Okay, I'm sorry,
No, I
No?
was just saying,
Okay.
yeah.
okay, so I make a motion, for the Coligliano application for special exception use in coastal site plan review to construct a 1,880 square foot 3-car garage and house addition, 140 square foot porch, front porch, and 136 square foot back porch to the existing residence for a total proposed 9,728 square feet at 38 Waters Point Road.
I'm gonna second that, and you have to do the CAM thing,
Sorry, I forgot to close public hearing.
and then close.
So
public
first,
hearing.
I'll withdraw that and
I'll withdraw
make a
it.
motion to close public hearing.
Okay.
Is there a second? Seconded by
Second.
Jerry. Any discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. 5-0. Thank you. Well, now I can go into the approval, correct? Okay, so make a motion to approve this application for special exception use in coastal site route plan review as just read a few minutes ago. With would they be considered conditions relative to the lighting and trees, or is that not necessary?
I mean, it doesn't hurt to repeat it.
That I think it would be good that if we had two conditions, that any lighting would be dark sky, full cutoff compliant, and that no existing trees will be removed from the property. Is there any discussion?
And the CAM
Oh,
language,
the
because it's
CAM.
consistent with all applicable coastal policies and makes all reasonable measures to mitigate adverse impacts.
Good,
Very
second.
good, thank you.
That's why you get me around.
I know, I lost mine.
Not hearing any further discussions, take a vote. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
I,
Opposed,
We
extension,
needed a second.
it was Jerry.
it was
Sure.
me.
And it passes unanimously 5-0.
Great, thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Continued with with workshops, drive-through windows as an accessory use for financial institutions, pharmacies, indoor restaurants, or other food and beverage establishments, section 53. Moratorium ends December 1st, 2023 this year. I think everyone had in their packet the latest recap from our last meeting regarding drive-throughs, and I will assume that everyone has had a chance to review these. So my question at this point is a couple things. One, would we like to go through paragraph by paragraph, which we've created now on 2, 3, 4, 5 pages? Or because, or. And I'll give you some of my comments for discussion, is that we started with a very simple, regulation 53. For drive-throughs on 53, description, which is really, say, 1 page. We've now turned it into 5+ pages. So we've added substantial amount of data and language to this. And my thoughts are that we may have overcomplicated a simpler process. And basically the current standard, if I'm correct, Chris, would not allow for many of the drive-throughs as we've defined in the proposed amendment.
So currently we allow them in the B2.
To,
That was the change with the Agway or Smithland Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
And then you had a petition to amend the regulations from the Carpianos who own the Benny's Plaza to open it up to the B4. So you do have some simpler language, and I know as the commission, we've been doing this
7 months.
probably 7, 8 months.
Too long.
There was a lot of discussion about how drive-through have changed. You've received a lot of feedback from traffic engineers, planners, and as well as people who operate drive-through windows. And I know you've gone back and forth with different thoughts and ideas. So as of this draft from your last meeting, this is where we stand.
So I listened to the last meeting because I wasn't here. And I think you said at that meeting, you're gonna send it to Jeff Jacobson one more time for comments.
So I did send it to Jeff later than expected. I mean, at some point too, our attorney also needs to take a look at it. I think that it makes sense to have Jeff Jacobson look at it with 2 hats. Number one, as a reviewer of plans that come in front of this commission, as well as if a design engineer, and does this make sense? So I don't have that for you tonight,
Right. So that,
but I can get that easily.
yeah, we did
I
say
apologize
that,
for
and we go to Jeff first before we go to Matt, okay?
Yeah.
Because we want to see what Jeff's comments were before we handed it to
Yeah.
Matt. I guess I just, present the opposite view, is given that area and what we're familiar with it, and what was once gonna happen, and it doesn't appear to happen in the way that it is congested today. Is it the correct thing to do for the town of Old Saybrook? Or are we better off leaving it the way it was? Or, which was basically a ban other than where we currently have existing drivers. So I just put that out on the table for consideration with the commission members as to what direction we want to go in. I have concerns. I have concerns that, one, we've done this on other things, is we have a lot to manage. And we have a lot to hand off to the CEO to manage, that takes something that worked and makes it potentially more difficult and confusing to work with. And as we acted correctly in the direction of, you know, what's the best thing to do for the town of Old Saybrook, its residents, things with looking at the drive-through, which was a very good process to do. But I know at times I got very confused in going through it as to what was what and not. So if the consensus is that we want to change direction, it is. If it's something that we want to either continue to the next meeting, or we take this as written, if there's any additional comments from everyone, and it goes to Jeff for review.
Well, it's pretty wordy. And I agree with you. I mean, it was a good exercise, but a lot of it to me is a little confusing. I agree, it might not be necessary, but maybe we should wait to hear from Jeff. I don't know. I kind of agree with you. I'm not really. This is not favorable to me.
Didn't we sort of start this though, because there were inconsistencies in what we have? That was kind of.
So I think it's a little bit more than Jeff, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
We spent a lot of time going back and forth.
we did.
And this current version would remove drive-throughs from, there would be restaurants and pharmacies would be removed from the B2. It opened up to the B4, so the B4 is the west side of town. There's other areas by the auto mall and throughout town, that would open up drive-throughs. It became more complicated, I think, as you talked about the evolution of drive-throughs from the 1970s drive-through that we have listed.
Yeah,
And then talking about where you wanted the drive-through. Did you want it towards the back of the lot? Did you want a longer lot? Did you want them up in the front? So I think part of this was part of the exercise of going through and do this, and we definitely, it is a much more detailed regulation than what you have now.
Probably one of our more detailed regulations.
And I think what Mark's asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it too much? You know what I mean? Do we need to have this much about it? And if we're gonna go forward, or you're gonna go forward with it, is that what you're looking to do?
yeah.
Versus the current regulation, which
I think it added a lot of good things. What it's doing with, stacking distance and bypass lanes and all that kind of stuff, I think wasn't there before, and I think it added a lot of positive things going forward
There are a few.
that we would want to
There are a
incorporate
few.
on these things.
If we were to continue in that direction of allowing, as it's written. I think at the time when we first started looking at this, Whole Foods was considering multiple drive-throughs on its site. The Oasis parcel on the other side of the railroad tracks was multiple drive-throughs. And that's where it probably, I think, if the memory is correct, started as in that direction. And that to some degree has changed from what we're at least hearing at this point.
Does it mean it won't happen again?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I think that, we spent so much time over the last 7 months going through this and creating a document that appears to be workable. Have we lost sight of what we should be doing? Because we got caught up in the detail.
If we would have had something more like this, when we were looking at the Smithfield Dunkin' Donuts, I think we would have done a better job with that.
That's possible.
I agree with that.
Possible. Do we, I'm sorry, did you want to see?
So are we talking about, I'm just asking for clarification, the details of the regulation, or are we talking about allowing drive-through restaurants and pharmacies more than?
More than what we already allowed.
Well, right now, after the Benny's Carpianato application, that opened the B4 wide open. We have it open in the B2.
Mhm.
I know there's been a lot of back and forth. Do we have it in the B2? Do we not have it in the B2? What's appropriate? And I think what Mark's kind of saying, is this the track we're still going on? The B2 and the B4, now the B2 is removed right now. Drive-through restaurants and pharmacies are allowed in the B2, in the B4. The banks, pretty much, this would open it up for more banks in different areas of town. But the previous, or the last text amendment that you approved really opened it wide up. So this would keep it wide open with a lot of details, except now you've changed it to remove B2.
Oh,
Sorry, it's a little confusing.
Well, yeah, it gets that way.
and that's exactly how I feel confused.
It does open it up to all those places in town with this document as a control. And control might be the wrong word, but to handle that development. And versus where we're at today with a very limited amount. And you know, if we were to get multiple drive-throughs in that section of town or over by the car dealers over there, what's that going to do to the
Yeah,
traffic congestion? And is that something that we want to support in Old Salem? Now, I'm a voice of one, an opinion, not opposing it, but presenting it for consideration after months and months of going through and creating this document, so.
So maybe we should get Jeff's comments.
I mean, I don't really think, I mean, Jeff's comments are important. I think what Mark's saying is going with the B2 and the B4 and opening it up or changing it. Is that what you want to do? I mean, we spent months going through
I know we did.
comments. B4 is wide open, B2's open. We definitely did a lot of work, and I think the commission found a lot of different things that need to be added to the existing. I think the question is, do you modify what's there for something to go back to something more restrictive before the application for the Benny's drive-through, which we did not allow them in the B4, they were limited in the B2. Now you've eliminated them in the B2.
Mhm.
Is that kind of,
Yeah, I mean, Marie, your point is you would like to see Jeff's comments on this
Yeah,
before.
because before we,
overall
like,
decision
before we
either
just
way.
drop the whole
Well,
thing.
yeah, I'm not saying that we should just drop the whole thing tonight, but I think your point is, let's get comments from Jeff to see what he thinks
Mhm.
as part of the decision, either to continue forward
Yeah.
or go back.
Because I hadn't thought about going back. I mean, I feel like
Right.
we've just worked so
Well,
hard
we
on this
have,
for so long.
We
that,
have,
Like
and-
now we're just gonna stop.
but I mean, it could.
I think, no, I think the reason for Jeff's comments, whether it's the B2, the B4, the B1, the B3, is do all of these different new regulations work with bypass lanes and
That's the kind of thing he's gonna address.
right, he's not gonna
going
address,
to.
is it
Yeah,
allowed the
no,
B1?
I
B2,
understand,
B4?
yeah,
And that, I don't think,
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to say, we're just not gonna, we're only gonna have drive-throughs in the B4,
no, I understand.
I
what
think
you're
that
saying.
this isn't a wasted effort.
No,
I think Mark's talking about it in a overall perspective from the zoning districts. Is that
That's right.
what you're?
Yeah.
I mean, we could have the potential with this of becoming, and I forget what the route is in Middletown, 166 or
60.
66.
66.
That is just drive-through over where Home Depot is, drive-through.
I don't think so, because we've limited the distances.
1,000 feet in between.
And the lot sizes, and so I think we avoided that by what we've come up with here.
We have put limits on it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Even though we've probably had objections from others regarding that, and I've said it, I just wouldn't want to see that any part of town look like that. If you
Yeah.
feel there's enough in here to control that, that's fine. I guess we can do it seems as if the consensus this evening is to move forward with what we had, get it in Jeff's hands, get his feedback, and then at the next,
and maybe tighten it up a little bit.
let's see, he's gonna come back as to whether
I
these
know.
things will work
I
or not.
guess
I know,
tighten it up as far as,
Meaning,
Well, that would be for the next discussion. We'll
Yeah.
Get his comments back,
yeah,
and we can, I don't know, will we also give it to Matt at the same time?
we can do
Or
that
just
too.
give
I
it
think
to
we're just
Matt.
gonna
Yeah, why
get
not?
it. Well, I mean, Matt's gonna look at it for legal. He's not gonna look at
I
it
know,
for
yeah, no, I
circulation.
know.
He's not gonna look at it and say,
so why
allow it here and don't
Yeah.
allow it here. I think Matt's really I mean, he's seen a version of the text, but it's evolved so many times to send it to our attorney every time really
Doesn't make sense.
doesn't make sense.
Well, what about our traffic consultant? Could we have them look at it and say, if we do this, what do you think is gonna happen to traffic?
I think we discussed that at the last
Well, I have
meeting.
a little bit, and we have, and we can send it again, that's fine. And we've had the applicants traffic, or not applicants, we've had through the public input section, we've had other traffic consultants and planners put their feedback.
Yeah, I think the traffic is really dependent on what the application is and where it is to impact the traffic that way. I mean, putting a bank somewhere probably had no impact at all. If you want to put a Chick-fil-A, you know, down there, it had a big impact. So I think you got to look at those individually from a traffic perspective. That's how I feel anyway.
And the initial traffic analysis too relied on other examples. It was heavily, I mean, it wasn't necessarily all traffic. It was about, in this town, this works, this town, that works. And I mean, I'm happy to send it back to them too. So what they did was, that was in December. They talked about Guilford, Westbrook, Brookfield, Englewood. They provided a number of resources. They provided some input. And we can definitely send this to them for circulation, you know, and thoughts on that.
Well, why don't we? I'll make a suggestion of what we should do. We take what we currently have, give it to Jeff, and get his comments to go back to the commission. With those, and at that point, we review those.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that I would ask of all the commissioners and the alternates is to take a look at that versus, is this the right thing that we want to do to have that many drive-throughs? Because it would be a lot of drive-throughs in the town of Old Saybrook.
Yes. Great.
Would it make sense to have Jeff take a look at it, and then depending on his concerns, maybe send it to our traffic engineer after? Because if we go through Jeff,
Yeah.
then are we gonna go to the next meeting, and then is it
Sure.
gonna be,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
gee, now let's get that input?
yeah,
I mean, it,
good idea.
Save the time.
No, I think that's good.
Or is that an
That's good.
agreement with all the commissioners?
Yeah.
and then at that point, I'll make a determination with the chairman.
Oh, yes, you'll make a determination.
It's hard to judge
it, it was not.
It may not, doesn't work.
Okay. Thank you. Next workshop was discuss possible 2023 housekeeping amendments. Yes.
Do we have something in that?
Actually, this one I just put that on the agenda as a placeholder. Can we just continue this to the next?
Continue to the next meeting.
Okay.
Committee representative and staff reports.
So the land use department's been pretty busy. We're trying to get the Pinetta development wrapped up. August 1st is our Sustainable Connecticut application deadline. We've got at least 4 to 5 special exception permits coming your way. It's a great time for zoning violations, so we can always add that into the mix.
Yeah.
So it's been a busy summer, just trying to wrap up a number of different projects between the commissions. There's really nothing else that I have to report.
Okay.
I'd just like to thank you all for helping me this evening at the last minute getting to chair it. So I know it wasn't smooth, but we got through
It
it.
was
Thank
very
you.
good.
Thank you
You
for
did a
your
good
help.
job.
So is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion to
Turned by
adjourn.
Mark.
Jerry,
Mark, seconded by Jerry, all in favor? Aye.